Hello, everyone. I hope you're doing well and that your semester is off to a good start. So I'm excited because I have another interview for you. And this time it's with Dr. Keith Renshaw, who is the Associate Provost for Undergraduate Education at Mason. So let's go talk to Dr. Renshaw. Hello,
Good
Dr.
morning.
Renshaw.
How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Doing well, thank you.
So just so it's fair across the board, I'm gonna give you my in the know welcome so you don't feel like I left you out. But I really appreciate you taking some time to chat with me. Um, I would like to start by asking, can you tell us a little bit about your time at Mason and the roles that you have taken on?
Yeah, sure. I'd be happy to. Thanks. Well, thanks for having me on. So I started at Mason in 2009. And at that point, I was an assistant professor in the psychology department on the tenure track. And I, uh, I had been at the University of Utah before that in a similar position. And so I moved here in '09 and got promoted to associate professor in 2013. And actually at that time also joined the faculty senate, and a few years later after that became the faculty senate chair. At that point we called it the chair, it's now called the president. So spent some time from 2016 to 2019 as the faculty senate chair, which basically meant that I sort of represented, tried to my best to represent all of the faculty interests, across Mason, to the administration, to the board of visitors, those types of groups. And then within there, in 2017, I also became the chair of the psychology department, and I was promoted to full professor a couple of years after that. And then I was the chair of the psychology department from 2017 through 2023, just last August. And then in August of 23, I transitioned into this position, associate provost for undergrad ed. So, and have been in this position as of our for a handful of months. So I mostly, I think I finally got my head around it all. Yeah.
So what you're trying to say is you've just been slacking it up since you came doing nothing.
I've never been good at sitting still. We'll see how much I rock back and forth in this interview. I will try to stay station.
No worries. This is just a conversation. So since you are the associate provost for undergraduate education, I thought it would be cool to learn a little bit about your undergraduate journey and your educational journey in
Yeah.
general.
Yeah, sure. My undergrad journey. So I went to Duke for undergrad, and I remember when I was deciding between universities at the time, I was down to the actual decision day, and hadn't decided yet, and I had sort of three places I was choosing between, and Duke was one of them, and the other two were up north, and I finally sat down and did a pro con list, and the cons that I had for Duke were that it was hot, because it was in North Carolina, and after I finally wrote it all down and looked at it, I was like, that's kind of a stupid reason to not go to a school. Like, they probably have air conditioning. So anyway, so I went to Duke and was there for sort of the traditional kind of college 4 years. And started actually as a bioengineer. Really went in thinking I was going to do bioengineering, and pretty quickly switched to biochemistry. And I thought I wanted to go into research, doing research on maybe cancer. At the time, my grandfather had recently passed away from cancer, and so was really focused on that. But what I found is that I'd always been a science and math kind of person, but it just I wasn't as grabbed by it. I just found myself not really. I was doing fine in the classes, but I wasn't enjoying them. And so, as part of the general education stuff, I took a couple of psychology courses and found that I really, the material really resonated with me. But I was feeling like I was losing the science and math. And then somewhere in there, I realized through one of my classes that, wait a minute, there's actually research that happens in psychology. And you can actually do scientific thinking, and you can design things, but it's about people. And so it's not quite as neat, as pipetting something and watching it turn blue, but you could do it. And so then I was hooked. And so I had a great 4 years at Duke. Spent plenty of time camping out for basketball games and stuff as well. But then decided to go to graduate school, and with some encouragement from a couple of faculty members, and managed to get into, somewhat controversially from a basketball standpoint, the University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill. So that was a little bit of a weird transition basketball wise, but it worked. And so I went there for clinical psychology and did my PhD there, and also met my wife there. And so after a year internship, I kind of went back and was actually a sort of what we call here at Mason a term faculty member,
Right.
so I did some
Right.
teaching, while she was finishing. And then I got my first tenure track job at University of Utah, and I was there from 2005 to 2009, and then came here. Maybe that was more than you were asking for, but
No, I mean
that's
that's really what I wanted to know. So I went to Clemson for my grad school. I don't know if we can still be friends and all of that.
it's
Uh,
difficult. It's difficult, but yeah.
yes, yes. We'll try.
Okay.
So, you like most of us went through the undergraduate education, have done different things, even as I believe department chair. Well, now you wear this hat of associate provost. So a little bit more. And
Yeah,
I was just curious to find out, what does undergraduate education mean to you?
that's a great question. And I will say that I think that my view on undergraduate education has evolved, right? As I have kind of progressed, and I've spent a lot of time thinking about that over the last several years. It really was when I became department chair. I think that I started to really think more richly about what undergraduate education is. And you know, today there is a lot of back and forth about the value of a college degree, and is it important? And when we talk about it, most people get down to one of two ways of thinking about it. One is people with college degrees get better jobs and make more money than people without. And then the other is sort of a broader kind of, I think, I don't know, conceptual or philosophical argument about the value of education and thinking. And to me, it's kind of both. And I think that when we default to one or the other, we really shortchange what college is. We can't deny that the number one reason that people cite for going to college, to undergrad, is career related. They want better job prospects, or they want a particular type of job prospect.
Yeah.
So that's crucial, and we have to acknowledge that, and we have to lean into that. We have to provide that. We have to, but we also have to know what that means, right? I think a lot of people think, so I'm going and I'm getting my degree in accounting, or I'm going to get my degree in computing, and that's great. But employers are not just looking for people with degrees, right? If they wanted people who just had this one skill set for this one job, you could do job training and skip all the other stuff that comes with college. But employers don't want that. They want people who have been stretched, who know how to think critically, who know how to write, who know how to speak, who know how to, and I mean, in ways that are compelling to professional audiences. They want people who know how to work with other people, and they want people who know how to work with other people who are different than them, because they know, employers know, that's the future workforce. So undergraduate education, even if we just stay focused on job prep, has to do all of those things. We need to be able to teach people not just the skills they need to do a particular task, but ways of sort of digesting information, thinking about problems, being able to think critically, step outside the box, all those things. And there's no one class you can do there. It has to be a set of experiences that you craft that sort of give people that ability. And so that happens in the classroom, that happens across multiple classes, and that happens outside the classroom. And that's a huge part of an undergraduate education. And I will say that you are hard pressed to argue that society does not need people who can engage constructively in society and with others who think differently than them.
Mhm.
We are in desperate need of people being able to come together who don't think the same, but can actually speak to each other and, maybe more importantly, listen to each
Right.
other with the
Right.
intent of understanding, not just changing or arguing.
Right.
And I'm not saying that we need to stop trying to change people's minds if we have beliefs. Of course we do. But
Right.
we have evolved to a point now, I think, where we're so ensconced in our own beliefs and we can really insulate ourselves from anything else, that I view college as one of the ways that we can try to break through that. And that's that was one of the main motivators that made me even apply for this position, was thinking about how can we structure our undergraduate education here to do that,
Right.
to help people push themselves beyond their comfort zone, with an intent of understanding difference rather than just running away from difference or yelling at difference.
Right. I know as a faculty member, one of my greatest moments in any class is when we're having a conversation and someone makes a point and someone says, I disagree with that. And here's why. And, I am very clear it has to be civil. And, there's that. It just makes me happy. And I'm like, I'm not trying to stare any kind of deception, but you're just showing me that you're thinking through it. And here's why it makes sense to you or not. And
Yeah,
for me, that's great. It brings me great pleasure. Yeah.
that's excellent. I love that.
Yeah. Yeah. So obviously at Mason, we have a lot of amazing undergraduate students in a host of programs and majors and disciplines and all of it. Um, what are some of the resources at Mason? And I know there are a ton of them, so I don't expect you to name all of them, but a
Yeah.
few key ones that you can think of that, sometimes, because I find that sometimes students are not aware of these resources, but that you think would help them, be successful.
So I'll start with, because you're right, there are just scads of resources
Right,
across. Um,
right.
I think there are two really important touch points for students, that can help them.
Mhm.
And the first that I'll say is academic advisors. People think about academic advisors, I think, a lot of times as like, oh, they're the people I got to meet with, this like sign up for class, right?
Right,
But they can do so much more. Advisors are plugged into all of the resources at Mason, so that when a student does need something, the advisor often can direct them to that. And so it's not that the advisor has all the resources right there, but they usually are one step from being able to connect you with what you need.
right.
So, and that can be from thinking about student groups I want to try out, thinking about internships, thinking about, financial support. I'm struggling to pay, tuition bills. To knowing where the food pantry is because I'm struggling to find food, to knowing about
Right,
childcare, to understanding where I might be able to find a campus job, to getting to getting plugged into mental health support.
right,
All of these things, right? Because we have all those resources, they're
right.
hard to find sometimes, but the advisor will be able to help. The second thing I'll say is every student ends up assigned with a success coach right now at Mason. And
Okay.
success coaches are even more plugged into those, sort of outside the classroom types of resources, right?
Right,
So,
right,
your advisor, is going to know about them as well, but your success coaches may even be more in the know about things like student groups, about how to connect with somebody at the Student Support and Advocacy Center, or how to
mhm,
connect with somebody at Counseling and Psychological Services.
mhm,
Or how to get involved in a musical production. I mean, there are all these different things, right? That students might want to do, and because it's hard to find, leaning on the people at Mason who are most aware of this totality of resources, those are some of the most critical pieces that I would sort of recommend. Beyond that, I'll say, I think that, your instructors, your faculty can be a fantastic resource that a lot of people don't recognize. Um, the CAPS is one that I will really point to. Counseling and Psychological Services. We're having a lot of mental health needs across the nation right now, and Mason is a great reflection of the nation, and so we are here as well. We have set up a contract with Timely Care, which is this sort of on-demand, telehealth type mental health services, because the demand is so great. Any student has access to that. Any student at Mason. So that's a really good one to know about. The other piece that I'll sort of point out on the academic side, besides what I've already talked about with advisors, is career services, which actually operates out of University Life. It's not under undergrad ed, but career services is a tremendous resource that students are, because the number one reason everybody's coming here is for a job. To not take advantage of career services is like mind blowing to me. You really should be talking to folks there. They can be helping you think about internships, job applications, grad school applications, et cetera. And then connected to that, the last one I'll say, and then I'll stop, is our university studies program. We have a fantastic university studies program that offers classes that help people transition into Mason, through Mason, and then beyond Mason for jobs and grad school. That's another great resource. And I said last, but I would be remiss if I didn't mention our Oscar office, the Office of Student Creativity, Creative Activity and Research. They have resources that can plug students into opportunities, paid research assistant opportunities for students who need jobs, but also want that experience. They're a terrific resource. And then our Cecil office, our Office of Community Engagement and Civic Learning, they are setting up tremendous partnerships with community partners in the region and are a great resource. And then our Office of Fellowships at Mason, which we have a whole office devoted to helping students find fellowships that might be able to support them financially. And we have students who don't realize that they are qualified for particular types of fellowships. You can come in with a fellowship opportunity you found, but you can also come in saying, hey, here's who I am. Is there anything out there for me? And they will help.
So I'm learning about some of these myself. So that is really great. I always have put in a plug for academic advisors, but you're right about the success coaches and all these other resources. And I'll try to include some of the links to some of these offices when I share this interview. So thank you so much. Well, so we have the resources, we have faculty. I've always said one of the things that is attractive to me about Mason is we do have faculty that are passionate about what they teach and their fields of expertise. What kind of mindset or approach to students, you've been through it, and I can't talk about mine because there's nothing to write home about, but what is the mindset that you think positions students into having a successful undergraduate experience?
That's such a good question. And I mean, your point about the faculty passion, I think, one of the things that really strikes me about Mason is that just about everybody who is here, faculty, staff, they're passionate about the mission, right? And the mission here is to help students succeed. And a lot of places, I think are passionate about their mission. I don't think we have a corner on the market, right? On that. But Mason's mission is to help students succeed by their definition of success, by and large. We are not interested in imposing a version of success on our students. We are about taking the students and say, what do you want to do? Where do you want to get to? And then helping them get there. So the mindset, in my mind, is one of openness and of trying to push yourself to be willing to ask for help, right? And to ask for what you need. You're not always going to get it, right? Sometimes we want things we don't get. That's fine. But everybody here is so devoted to trying to help students get to where they want to go that if students can come in and have the mindset of, I am going to try to accomplish my goals, and if I'm struggling, I'm going to ask for help. That is the single biggest tip I would give. It's to not let yourself think you're in it alone, to not let yourself think that you have to figure it out on your own, and to not let yourself get overwhelmed by the number of resources, because it can start to get overwhelming and you just start, never mind, like it's too hard. Ask somebody.
Yeah.
And then if they don't have the answer, they'll help you find somebody who does. We need to continually improve, right? The way that we can do that. But I think advisors and coaches are a great place to start if you're not sure where to start. But even if you don't do that, just ask somebody. So that's one key piece.
Right.
The second key piece I would say is try to stay open to things you haven't considered before. And I say that in regard to career pieces,
Right.
B, classes, and
Mhm.
C, other people. So career paths, you may come in with a pretty clear idea of where you want to head,
Mhm.
but open yourself up. I mean, when I started undergrad, I was really about doing medical research. And I'm now a university administrator, right? I mean, I was, I went into like, maybe I'll do, some straight chemical research. Then I went to sort of, maybe I'm going to be a therapist. Then I went to, I'm going to be a research. Now I'm an academic, now I'm an administrator. Allow yourself to sort of allow yourself to explore, right? So think about, other possibilities. And then think about courses that, allow yourself to be open to sort of, pushing yourself to take a class that's outside your wheelhouse. It might be a bust. I mean, you might just sort of struggle through it, and but you might find something where you're like, man, I didn't even know this was a thing.
Yes.
I still look back on my philosophy of science class that I had to take as part of my major that I hated at the time. Like, you gotta be kidding me. And I go back to that still now, because it really kind of informs the way that I think about how we think. And so decades later, that still influences me, even though I didn't at the time. I thought it was a bust. And then finally, other people. I cannot tell you like the single biggest thing that if I could change in a heartbeat, I would, is to make people want to talk to people that they think differently from, rather than not want to. Right? It has been sort of cultivated in our society to just either scream at or avoid people you disagree with. And it is a screaming problem that is influencing our entire nation and beyond, right? It's not just, and so that, if I could encourage people to like you, like to your example, right? Hey, I disagree with that, and why? In a civil way, but explain. And then the person who's being disagreed with, to not be thinking, how can I refute this? How can I refute this? But say, okay, hang on, let me understand where you're coming from.
Yeah.
And then, if you still disagree, great, that's fine. Like share, but try to listen with the intent of understanding, not refuting.
Right. I think these are some really key tips and tools to have. I do really appreciate that you mentioned staff, because the thing is, students do interact with faculty more often than not. Staff are a wealth of resources that I don't think students are aware of. Especially those within the academic units for academic questions, but also those outside of the academic units. So you're totally right about faculty and staff being dedicated for the service. And those three pieces, I think, are really important. Well, you have shared a lot. I have learned some stuff, and I'm not even an undergraduate student. But I think it helps me as a faculty member to also, think through some things as I interact with students. So before I let you go, do you have any final thoughts, any final words, any nuggets? I know you've dropped a lot, but I think there are a few more that you could.
Honestly, I will. The thought that occurs to me as you're asking that and listening to you is just to thank you for the time and for doing this. I think that what you're doing is an excellent example of just the commitment and the devotion that people have. This isn't a requirement, right? You're not getting some sort of credit for that, or I mean, you're doing it because you care and you want, and so I think it's an excellent example of Mason writ large. And so to that degree, I just thank you for that, and I really appreciate the time.
Thank you. Well, Associate Provost, Keith Renshaw. I know I have to remember all the titles. Um, thank you so much. I know you're busy. The semester is coming fast. Through it took a little getting used to because I'm used to the third week of January. But it's good. Change is
Snuck
good.
up on us this year. Yep.
Change is good. And so I am really excited for students and even faculty because, like I said, I learned some things and staff to hear what you had to share. So thank you so much for your time and all the nuggets, like I mentioned, that you have dropped for us. I wish you the best. Thank you very much. Everybody, please pay attention to what has been shared. And like I said, I will have some of the links to some of these offices mentioned so you can take advantage. Thank you.
Fantastic. Thank you very much. Good luck, everybody.
Bye.